Welcome back. In this lesson, I'll continue with creating the wheel and tire objects. We had just finished going over how I'd approach creating the wheel itself, and now we'd go to creating the tire. The low detail version of the tire would be pretty straightforward. And so I've got reference up on my second monitor that I'm looking at, just to get sort of like the profile of the tire. But to begin, I would start with a cylinder and just rotate this 90 degrees at a fixed angle. And it's A for angle snap. Alrighty. And so I'll just move this out of the way. Then I'd add an edit poly modifier. Select this edge while looking at my reference. I'll chamfer it. Like so. And again, it just depends on the style of tire you're building. I'm building something fairly simple here. And so what I'd do next is I'd want to get rid of some of these faces here. So just make a selection, delete that. Then I'd go through with my Swift Loop tool. I'd add a loop here, grab that loop, move it out a little bit, switch to border mode, grab this border, and just move that up ever so slightly. Then I'd go to this side here, delete those bad boys. And from this point, it would simply be adding a symmetry to get the same detail on my other side. And this works well in that whatever other kind of minor details I might carve on here, or whatever changes I make, of course, I'd get on the other side with my symmetry, so I'm not working on doing both sides at the same time. If I want my tire to be a little thicker, I'll just switch to border mode, grab the center area here, drag that out. And let's go ahead and just add maybe 2 more segments there. Perfect. And so again, the low detail or game ready version of the tire is pretty straightforward. And I've made this one fairly rotund here, which is not a big deal. It totally depends on what you want and the style you're going for. All right, so this would be our low detail tire. And so to create the high detail, because what we do is create a high detail version and then bake our maps onto the low detail. I just clone the low detail. I'll just go ahead and isolate this for now, so I can just see that alone. And then what I do from here is simply go in, add an edit poly modifier, and I'll just show a quick and dirty way of getting tread detail on your tire. You know, for baking out your map so you can have normal maps and all that good stuff on your low detail version. And so I'll just select these edges here. I'll loop them. Then just grab my rotate tool. Just rotate them a little bit so that I can get, you know, these lines here to break up quite a bit. Then I would go in, grab every other, loop those, switch to vertex mode, grab my rotate tool again, and just do a rotation like that. And as you can see, I'm just doing that so I can get some disturbances here for the tread of the tire. Once that is finished, I'll just go to one of my orthographic views, maybe my right view, grab all these faces here. And let me switch to face mode if I'm grabbing the faces. Switch to my perspective and just move around to make sure I have them all. And what I'm going to do now is bevel all these faces so that I can get, you know, the grooves and depression for my tire. What I do here is, let's switch that. I usually have to play around with this for a little bit, but it should be by polygon. Alrighty. And of course, this is at your discretion. Bevel, however you want. And so that would give you a tire that looks like that. Now, for what you're doing, you could go with this, but if you wanted it a bit more detail and you added a turbo smooth to this, you'll notice that your edges won't hold up. So what you can do here is basically go in and chamfer all the edges that make up the detail of the tire tread. And so it would just be a matter of getting into a viewport and just drag selecting all these bad boys here. And moving around just to be sure that we have everything. And then I'll do a chamfer. Increase my amount. And I'll go in and see, I'll do 2 segments. And so you can see that that looks a bit better. And then what I do here is assign a turbo smooth. And that's what you would get. Now, clearly we've got issues going on here with our chamfer. And for that, I just simply go back to my edit poly and we'd go in. And we'd only do this on one side because of course we have a symmetry line running down the center of this object here. So I'll just go in and on any one side, I'll just grab those verts, collapse them. And I'm just hitting C because that's the hotkey I have assigned. And all you got to do here is make sure you're not selecting any verts in the back when you do this. Collapse. And I'll just do it with those 2 and then switch back to my turbo smooth so you can see what's going on here. And you can see that that took away some of that stuff we were getting there with the edges and the verts not being quads or being very clean. And again, this is your high detail version that you'd be baking from. So you basically just do it on half and mirror it over and then unwrap or low detail and bake from that. All right, another way to do it, that was a quick and dirty way. Another way to do the tire tread, let me go and isolate this again, would be to use some of the methods we detailed earlier in building parts of the car. And that is just edge modeling. And this, basically, I started out, I'll switch so you can see what's going on here. I started out with a plane and I just cut in some simple random shapes just to give you an idea of what we're doing. But you could pull up the reference image for whatever tire you're trying to build and just model out all these little areas here. But back in my 3D app, once I've gotten all that done, then I'd simply clone this. And I'd do it maybe about 100 times. And I'll zoom extents to see, and you can see now I've got multiple pieces of that. I'd add an edit poly. And what I'm going to do is attach all these pieces and then bend that into a tire. All right, so I'll attach everything here, switch to vertex mode, and I'll do a weld. So everything here should be one complete piece. And again, this is a high detail tire with treading. And from here, I would go ahead and add a bend modifier. I'll set my direction to 90, my angle to let's do 387. I'll do minus 387 actually. Zoom extends to see what's going on. And so you can see you block out a tire tread detail. And again, you could bake from this to your low detail version. And so, of course, if you're wanting, zoom extent, turn off my snaps. If you're wanting to have, wanting to see this smoothing on this, I'll just go ahead and subdivide turbo smooth. And that's what that looks like. And again, this was just a simple thread pattern that I created. You'd use your reference and just block out something that you needed for this. And let me just double check what's happening here, just to be sure that we've got everything sorted out. Yeah, so that would be one way to get, all that blocked in. And I think this one area here, I'll delete my turbo smooth for now. We've got overlap. So I'll just go and do 360. Now I'll just zoom in. Oops. And just move my, there we go. Move my values until I get that in a little bit. All right, let's try 361.25. 361.125. Oops. Minus. And this should do it. Alrighty. And so there's a tiny little gap here. You could keep tweaking the values until it closes up, or simply just add an edit poly modifier and go in and collapse these edges here. The other thing I could have done was measure this out so that it would come full circle at 360 degrees. But again, it's just a matter of going in and tweaking those. There we go. And then I'd add my turbo smooth modifier. And of course, this would be the high detail version that we bake down to a lower detail. Alrighty, that concludes this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next. Thank you and bye.